For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Vice President Kamala Harris makes her first presidential campaign event today, visiting the swing state of Wisconsin. She's already garnered enough delegate support to win the Democratic Party's nomination, according to a tally by the Associated Press. Harris, who would be the nation's first woman and Indian American president, raised a record $100 million since Sunday, when President Joe Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed her. In a preview of Harris's readiness to win, she spared no punches against Republican Donald Trump in a speech to campaign staff Monday. Christopher Martinez reports.
Donald Trump wants to take our country backward to a time before many of our fellow Americans had full freedoms and rights. But we believe in a brighter future that makes room for all Americans.
Kamala Harris was at campaign headquarters.
Before I was elected as vice president, before I was elected as United States Senator, I was the elected Attorney General, as I've mentioned, of California, and before that I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Biden phoned in.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be out there in the campaign with her, with Kamala. I'm going to be working like hell. You know, what we still need to save is democracy. And Trump is still a danger to the community. He's a danger to the nation.
Party officials say they plan to select the next nominee virtually sometime before August 7th. That's a deadline involving an Ohio ballot issue. Reporting for Pacifica Radio, I'm Christopher Martinez.
Republicans are pledging legal action over the allocation of Biden's campaign funds to Harris's campaign. Before Biden bowed out, they also floated the idea of suing to keep him on the ballot. Catherine Carley reports.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says the more than 14 million voters who backed Biden in the primaries should not be disenfranchised.
It would be wrong and I think unlawful in accordance to some of these states' rules for a handful of people to go in a back room and switch it out because they don't like the candidate any longer.
Republicans are also calling on Biden to resign, saying if he's not fit to run, he's not fit to serve. Former President Donald Trump has kept up attacks on social media, claiming without proof that Biden's advisors hid the truth about his health and calling his COVID diagnosis a fake excuse to drop out. I'm Catherine Carley for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
Several Republican lawmakers seized on gender and diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the Secret Service as among the reasons for security lapses during the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. It's part of a wider conservative backlash against DEI that's been on the rise since last June when the Supreme Court ruled to end affirmative action in college admissions. The latest attack materialized in full view during a congressional hearing Monday against the Secret Service and its director, Kimberly Chattel. She also faced a grilling by Democrats and calls for her to resign. Audie McAfee reports.
Chattel told lawmakers that the assassination attempt is the most significant operational failure in decades.
The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed.
Maryland Democratic Jamie Raskin asked Chattel about the shooter being identified that day as a suspicious person and why the Secret Service allowed Trump to take the stage that day anyway. Chattel answered that there's a difference between a suspicious person and an identifiable threat.
If the detail had been past information that there was a threat, the detail would never have brought the former president out onto stage.
Virginia Democrat Gerald Connolly grilled Chattel for answers about whether the easy availability of guns in America makes her agency's job more difficult.
We almost lost a presidential candidate the other day. And I'm asking you, did the availability of that AR-15, which is replicated all across America, make your job harder or easier? And you're not willing to answer that question? And you think and you wonder why we might have a lack of confidence in your continued ability to direct this agency?
Authorities are still investigating the incident. So far, they haven't been able to establish a motive. I'm Audie McAfee.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in the U.S. to address a joint session of Congress tomorrow, Wednesday. Protests are planned in opposition to Israel's war in Gaza, the high civilian death toll, and humanitarian crisis. A growing number of lawmakers are pledging to boycott Netanyahu's address. Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley, a Democrat, said on social media he'll skip it and, quote, Netanyahu's war strategy killed 12,000 women and children, inflicted widespread starvation, and prioritized his political survival over the release of hostages. He should not have a platform before Congress, unquote. Vice President Kamala Harris will reportedly not attend Netanyahu's address, but will meet with him privately. It's unclear whether Biden will, as he's recovering from COVID. Netanyahu's now signaling a ceasefire deal could be taking shape that would free dozens of hostages held by Hamas and Gaza. Hamas is pushing for a ceasefire that ends the war. Palestinian political factions have formed a unity government after meeting in China. It includes Fatah, Hamas, and 12 other organized parties. The move comes after the International Court of Justice ruled Israel's settlements on land seen as a future Palestinian state violate international law. In Illinois, the family of a black woman shot in the face by a white police officer are demanding justice after authorities released body cam footage of the killing that took place earlier this month. James Wilburn is the father of Sonia Massey.
This man should have never had a badge. He should have never had a gun. He should have never been given the opportunity to kill my child. I want justice for my baby. Yeah.
The shooting officer, Sean Grayson, was arrested and charged with murder. Ukraine's foreign minister makes his first trip to China since Russia's invasion of Ukraine to discuss Beijing's peace plan. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.